Hi, friends. On May 4th, I looked it up before I started this live. On May 4th, we had a conversation about how to pivot your healthcare career into medical writing. And we talked about 3 steps that you wanted to take if you were a health professional who was interested in making that pivot. Those 3 steps were to identify your why, meaning figure out what about medical writing interests you, what about medical writing makes you excited, and highlighting those elements of medical writing so that step 2, you can identify the exact types of medical or health writing that you're interested in. We talked about how medical writing and health writing are umbrella terms, that there are a lot of different types of writing that fall under those categories. So step 1 was important because you wanted to identify what exactly interested you so that you could figure out what type of medical or health writing aligned with that specific interest. So once you identified that why and those interests, and then you identified the type or types of medical and health writing that you were interested in, the last step was for you to start getting experience, start getting your hands dirty, start finding ways to build up your portfolio and your background so that when you go into a position where you are trying to get a full-time role or trying to start freelancing, particularly if you were interested in freelance health content writing, that when employers or publishers asked you for samples of your work, that you would have something to show. Those are the 3 steps that we talked about in terms of pivoting your career from into medical writing as a healthcare professional. My question for you today is, and really the question that I'm going to be answering is, where does a certificate or a certification come into play? Where is that relevant? Where does that fit in with those 3 steps that we talked about? Where does that become helpful for a person? So in case we haven't met yet, my name is Megan Freeland. I'm a public health pharmacist turned health content strategist, and I run an accelerator program called Health Professionals to Health Writers, helps US-based healthcare providers replace a portion of their primary income through freelance health content writing, which is a very specific type of medical and health writing. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this question of where does a certificate or certification come into play. Depending on the type of medical or health writing that you have identified as your ideal type, there may or may not be certificates available. So if you go to my YouTube channel called Health Writing for Health Professionals, there's a playlist there. The playlist is called the 9 different types of medical and health writing. If you have questions about what those types are, I would recommend heading over to that playlist and watching it all the way through. But basically, for some types of medical writing, there are certificate programs that you might be able to take. For example, if you are interested in just like general medical writing, right? Usually like writing for a clinical or health professions audience, or you kind of want to work in a hospital or some type of traditional organization as a medical writer, there are certificates, training programs that the American Medical Writers Association offers. If you were interested in regulatory writing, there are a couple of regulatory organizations that offer either training or certificate programs. One is called the Regulatory Affairs Professional Society, I believe, RAPS for short. The Drug Information Association is another. So if you are interested in regulatory writing or medical information, drug information, DIA might be a great resource for you. For health content writing specifically, which is my specialty and which is the type of health writing that I am most often talking about and educating about, there is no universally accepted, recognized, or esteemed certification. There just isn't. Even if you get some type of certificate, a potential client is likely not going to care. I have never, in my 5+ years of working as a freelancer, I've never been asked like, oh, do you have this particular certificate, or have you done XYZ training program? Because ultimately it doesn't matter. The potential client does not care whether you have a certificate or not. They care whether you have experience, whether they can see evidence of that experience, i.e. your portfolio, whether you have, written for similar your companies, they care about your background and what you're able to bring to the writing, bring to the work. They care that you have an understanding of marketing, all of these things that they care about. The certificate is not one of them. So when it comes to health content writing specifically, certificates are not really in the equation. The reason for that is certificates are not skill sets. I'll say that again. Certificates are not skill sets. Certificates oftentimes don't teach skill sets. They might teach foundational knowledge that you might need in order to gain a skill set, but they oftentimes don't teach an actual skill set. Certificates do not replace skill sets. So if you come into freelance health content writing knowing that this is a path that you want to pursue, but you don't have any experience, getting your certificate is not going to replace or compensate for that experience. Certificates are signals that you spent some time and or you spent some money learning something and maybe passing a test about something, but certificates are not a sign that you actually know how to do the thing, that you actually know how to execute or implement the skill set. And that is what a potential client cares about. They want to know that you can do the thing, that you can support their content marketing efforts, that you can write an excellent and impactful blog post, that you can write a marketing style blog post. That's what they want to know. And a certificate is not going to prove that. It's not going to replace the fact that you don't have that experience if you don't have that experience. So that's why when we talk through those 3 steps about how to pivot your career into medical writing, that's why I emphasize that experience, because there's no replacement for that. And a certificate is not going to replace that either. I think that as a profession, and really as a collection of professions, because this is not just a pharmacy thing, it's really the culture of healthcare overall. We are very hung up on certifications because that's the nature of our work, right? Board certification is like top tier. That's what you go for as a clinician, to indicate that you have a certain set of knowledge and set of expertise and skills. You might have done like graduate certificate programs in the past where maybe you didn't get a full degree in a thing, but you got a certificate in it. So that could serve as some type of signal or sign that you had this interest or you had this foundational knowledge. But what we have to remember when we're thinking about health content writing is that it's not just about the writing. Health content writing is a very small piece of health content marketing. So when potential clients are looking for writers to create content for them, they don't just want someone who can put words on paper. They need someone who is aware of the marketing and the communications landscape and how that works. So in marketing and communications, that same certifications and trainings are not seen on the same level as they are in our traditional healthcare industry. So that is a shift that you have to make mentally, because you are probably thinking about a certification in the context of the healthcare industry. And when we're talking about health content writing, we have to be thinking about the marketing industry and content marketing specifically. And those things are not on the same level in those two industries. So again, marketing and communications is different. In this case, you do not have to wait for someone to validate you with a certificate, a certification, a specific designation. Like, that is not something that is going to be helpful to you in this space. Your work and the evidence of your work, again, i.e. your portfolio, is the validation. That is what speaks for you when you are talking to a potential client that you want to write for. So if you are going to invest in a training program, in a certification program, in any type of professional development or educational program that is geared towards with the goal of becoming a freelance health content writer, you have to make sure that that opportunity comes with the chance for you to gain experience, because that is what is going to make the difference. You can learn all the background knowledge that you want. And it's not to say that it won't be helpful, because you do need some of that foundational knowledge. When students join health professionals to health writers, the first part of the program is dedicated to helping them get that foundational knowledge about what is all this marketing stuff, basically. And so You have to make sure that in addition, though, to that knowledge, that you're getting the opportunity to get experience as well. So that's why, in addition to getting that knowledge, students in the program are creating their portfolios while they're in the program so that when they go out and they're trying to get work, they actually have samples to show. As healthcare professionals, a lot of us have never had the opportunity to write before. If we have written before, it's probably been something that you would find in a medical journal, a scientific publication, which, as you know, is very different than like a blog post that someone in the general public could read. So we have to prioritize getting that experience so that we can demonstrate to a client, yes, even though I am a pharmacist, I do have the capacity to take really complex scientific and medical information and turn that into a really interesting and engaging blog post. Or yes, as a public health professional, I have written in journals before, but I have also, led community events and created patient materials for those events. And here are examples of those materials. So those are just kind of a few examples of ways that you can demonstrate your expertise and your experience as a writer. And I just really want to make sure that we don't overlook the fact that a certificate, a badge, completing this LinkedIn course or this Coursera course or whatever it is, like that's great for getting up to speed and starting to gain knowledge about what content marketing and what content writing are, but it is not going to substitute for experience. So that has to be a priority. If there are more questions about how you actually get that experience, there are plenty of videos on the Health Writing for Health Professionals channel that talk about that. There's a recent one, and then there are two from a couple of years ago that are still really relevant. So feel free to go on that channel and just, if you search experience in my channel, those will probably come up. And I hope those are helpful for you. In the meantime, if you are interested in joining the waitlist for health professionals, health writers, you can always just leave a comment that says write, or you can shoot me a DM that says write, and we'll talk about how to get you on the waitlist. I hope you have a great Wednesday, and I'll talk to y'all soon.